How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about The Mist from 2007. This is written for the screen and directed by Frank Darabont, based on the novella by Stephen King. I'm a big horror fan, and I realized on this channel I need to cover a bunch more Stephen King. I have a little bit of his movies, but I need to be reviewing a lot more, so going to try to get more Stephen King movies coming along. But yeah, this is one of the better ones, and it does have kind of a cult following that really loves this movie. And while I do think this movie is pretty good, and I do think it is in probably the top half of the Stephen King adaptations, I'll give you I'll just go ahead and tell you, I will be covering flaws with this movie. You know, whenever you get movies that have a big cult following, sometimes people don't want to hear flaws, but I have to give my honest opinion on every movie that I watch, and that will be covering a lot of the pros, but there are some major flaws in this movie. I know that a lot of you who are familiar with this know at least two of the major flaws, and yeah, we'll get into them when we get there. But let's go ahead and talk about the plot of this movie a little bit. No major spoilers, but I do want you guys to have a basic understanding of what this movie's about, and I do want to cover basic plot points. So let's go ahead and dive in. You get this guy played by Thomas Jane, and he is going in to his studio and he is painting. You see, he does painted movie posters, which are kind of becoming a lost art, as most movie posters are just photoshops and repeats of each other, the blue and gold photos. I'm not supposed to be ranting about movie posters. Anyway, he's doing hand-painted movie posters, and you see that in this universe, he's the guy who painted the poster for The Thing, and he's working on painting a poster for a movie based on Stephen King's Dark Tower, so it's a fun Easter egg, and also the idea that we'd be getting a Dark Tower movie closer to 2007 than the late 2010s is a fun idea, so that's cool. He's painting when all of a sudden there's a big storm. They go and hide from the storm. They come out and see that there's a bit of damage. One of the neighbor's trees has fallen and crushed his studio, ruining his Dark Tower painting, which is no fun there. That movie's already faced enough trouble getting into production. So he's ruined his Dark Tower painting. He goes to talk to the neighbor to, do insurance stuff, and him and the neighbor are not on perfect terms, and they're trying to be civil, which is a good relationship, because so many times in movies people either are good friends or they hate each other. These are neighbors that have come into contact with each other in a few negative times, and now it's this tree thing, but they do their best to be civil, just like real life people, and I do like that relationship. The uneasy friend, not really an enemy, but we're gonna try to be nice to this guy. And he goes in, he talks, they're nice enough, and he asks for a ride to the store because the main character is got a bigger and better car than he does, a good for off-roading post a storm. So they leave the wife at home. Him, his son, and the neighbor go off, and they notice a mysterious mist coming in. And as I talk about this movie, I'll do my best to refer to it as a mist and not a fog, because The Fog is a different movie. But anyway, they notice a mist coming in, they get to the store, and you meet a bunch of new characters, and some of these characters are going to be important, some of them aren't, and it's kind of the mix with a big group of strangers. The mist gets in, surrounds the store, and everybody's kind of panicking because of that, when all of a sudden a stranger with blood on his face comes in and says, "Stay out of the mist, it's dangerous in the mist." So they're all concerned, they're not wanting to leave the store, which leads to a bunch of people huddled in this store, which really is one of the movie's major flaws. every now and then you see stuff on the news, disasters, people trapped in weird places, and sometimes you do think, when you go to a store where you're waiting in some place that isn't your house, you always have that, well, not always, but every now and then have that thought in the back of your head, what if I was stuck here? And you see these strangers that you don't really know, and you're like, what if I knew more about that guy? And it's a whole bunch of these cool, stuck in a disaster, abnormal place, abnormal people, meeting more of them, finding out who's cool and who's not. So you get stuck in there, and they go to work on the generator. There's something blocking the generator vent, which is outside, and even though the main character, he thinks he heard something, plus you get that guy's warning, they don't listen to the main character, and they send a young employee outside, and he's viciously attacked by mysterious monsters. All you really see are the tentacles. So they close the gate really quick, and they go back and they try to warn people, but you tell people they're tentacle monsters in the fog, and they don't believe you. So this gets to be friction within the group, and you start to see a few parties, different people with different ideologies forming, and it is cool to see the people grade against each other and form little subgroups just out of random people that happen to be stuck in the grocery store. And that is a pretty cool element, but of course they do find that there's not just the big tentacle monsters, there's several other creatures in the fog, bug ones, pterodactyl ones, crazy stuff, and eventually the monsters do make their hand more known. And that is one of the cool things too, is this movie goes kind of a disaster survival movie, a big storm, a fog, huddling up in a weird place, to being a creature feature, and it does balance both the disaster survival side of the movie and the creature feature side of the movie very, very well, and both these elements are really cool, and to see them trying to survive. It is worth noting that the ladies who play Andrea in The Walking Dead and Carol in The Walking Dead are both in this movie, and you can kind of see that even though this isn't about zombies, that survival feel is still in there, and that's probably the casting people like, hey, this movie has similar ideas to what we're doing, let's get some people from it, and it is cool to see those actors as well in there. But anyway, the major pros, like I said, a great atmosphere, this store surrounded by fog, really tight suspense, but also the characters, like I said, your main lead and his son are a good, likable main lead, but finding out who out of these people are going to be your friends, you lead to some really surprising, cool characters that turn out to be main characters. There's one in particular, one of the managers, that guy from that M. Night Shyamalan show I can't remember the name of, Wayward Pines. He's in it, and he, it's this little manager guy, and he turns out to be one of the coolest characters. You really do like him, and he's turns out to be a good marksman with the gun, and that's all really, really cool. And the monsters are cool too. A good variety, at least 3 or 4 major types of monsters there, and you're like, wow, that is really, really cool. And like I said, it does balance the survival disaster and the creature feature side very well, and these monsters are great looking, great creatures, really cool. And this is probably the top third of King movies. It's really cool, and there's a lot of really fun stuff, and there's lots of elements of this movie I do really, really like. It's really cool. But we do have to get to flaws, and there are a few. One that you probably know I'm gonna say is this movie, all the creatures are done with CGI, and they're cool looking creatures. CGI doesn't necessarily hold up, so there is that to deal with, that it's not the best CGI. It was pretty good for 2007, but it's 2021 now, so it's been a little while, almost 15 years, and it doesn't necessarily date the best. It doesn't look terrible, but it's not the best. And I know a lot of people are going to say, to fix the CGI, you watch the black and white version. The CGI doesn't look near as bad in black and white. And maybe when I do a rewatch of this movie, I do have the 2-disc edition, which does feature disc 2 is the black and white version of this film. So maybe when I do a rewatch, I'll watch it in black and white, and then maybe I can do a revisited review. So I'll check that out in my next review. The other thing is there are some characters that don't work. Like later on in the movie, there's a cashier girl and this military guy, and there's a random scene where it's like, oh, they're in love, it's so great they're together now. I'm like, who are these characters? We don't know them well enough for this. And, you know, it tries to be like, oh, they're big characters, but they don't really amount to much. But when you talk about bad characters, I do have to mention there's a religious zealot religious zealot lady in this movie, and, you know, a very common character to pop up in Stephen King movies. But whenever I see this, I keep going, oh, there's another one of Carrie's moms. Like, the Carrie mom character just appears in so many Stephen King movies, and it's like, there she is again. And in this movie, I find her kind of annoying, and I really didn't like her as a character. And the idea that she would build a little cult, while it is interesting, and it creates good, you know, drama within the group to have a cult leader and everyone's fighting her, I found it kind of unrealistic that just over a day or two that a whole bunch of people would start following her. And I really didn't like this character. The channel's based in Texas, and it's no big secret that Texas has a lot more religious folks in it than a lot of other places, but in my whole life, I've never met anyone like this, and it was just over the top, and I wasn't really a big fan, kind of an annoying character, and it was done best with Carrie, and it's just to see this repeated again and again. Not a big fan of it. They do give her a little bit of motivation when they talk about how she wants to feel important, and she wants people to notice her, the scene where she's alone in the bathroom. That kind of justifies it, but I wasn't a big fan of this character. And another thing I do have to say is, until you get the scene where they all know there's creatures there, until then I do kind of wonder why so many of them are choosing to stay. You get the girl that plays Carol. She chooses to leave to find her family, but you think a lot more people would leave, but for some reason, before everyone knows there's monsters, they're all really content with just hanging out in this grocery store for a long time, and I did find that kind of odd. But the last flaw, the biggest flaw, and the one that you probably all knew I was going to talk about from the beginning, the ending. They changed the ending in this from the book to a different ending, and it seems like whenever there's a different ending, Stephen King is always like, I love the new ending. Never really been a big fan of it. They changed the ending for the remake of Pet Sematary 2. Not a big fan of that, and really not a big fan of this ending. A lot of people, the ending ruins the movie for them. I know there are some people that really like it. They're like, dark ending. And I don't mind dark endings, but they have to earn it, and they have to work within the tone of the story. A dark ending has to be earned, and this dark ending, really, it came out of nowhere. It's something I didn't think the characters would do. Like, when you follow the characters in the story, I don't think that's how the characters would behave. It just seems to come out of nowhere and get really dark, and it's like, okay, well, I guess they did that, and I'm personally not a big fan of it. Now, I don't mind dark endings, like I said, but it really has to work right within the story, and here it felt like it didn't. It felt like it came out of nowhere, and it didn't match, or at least not in my feeling. But anyway, I know I did cover lots of flaws, and I did kind of gripe about it, but I don't really want to feel like I'm super negative about this movie. Like I said, the atmosphere, the creatures, and the characters that turn out to be the good, cool hero characters, there's a lot of them that I really like, and there is really a lot to like about this, but it is kind of sad that there are enough flaws to notice, you know, but like I said, it's really not bad, and it's probably in the upper third of King movies. And hey, this is Frank Darabont, who did Shawshank Redemption and Green Mile, right? Those are the two he did, which, yeah, among the better Stephen King adaptations as well. So, a pretty fun movie, but yes, it does have its flaws, and really on top of everything. It's the ending that's going to divide people. So know that going into it, and not going to spoil exactly what happens. But anyway, know that going into it. Overall, a good movie, but yeah, there is stuff. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You are really helping the channel out. I cover about 95% horror movies on this channel, so if that sounds like something you're interested in, I'd recommend sticking around. And I'll also put a relevant playlist at the bottom, so if you guys want to see more that are kind of like this movie, I'd say click over there and see what's up. But anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon, and relevant playlist over there. Alright, see you guys again very, very soon.